All right, man, peace. So, brothers, this is going to be episode 2 in our series on the introspective analysis of the testimonies of R. Kelly's accusers. This series entry will be featuring the former Mrs. R. Kelly herself, that being Andrea Kelly. Once again, brothers, this series is not intended as an attempt to minimize or marginalize the narratives being propagated from these women about R. Kelly. Please understand, I'm already on record as telling you cats that I believe that R. Kelly is an MK asset, an MK handler, and an MK programmer himself. This quote-unquote trial that I'm putting his accusers on is just a way to provide context for brothers when it comes to the potential that they may find themselves being subjected to the same accusations from the modern-day liberal woman, who's pretty much being universally signaled to embrace her self-victimization archetype. It's very important, it's very integral that cats grasp this, that the modern-day female is being pretty much universally signaled by the mainstream liberal news on television and other forms of media to understand that her self-victimization will be indulged. Whatever it is that she wants to complain about or seek attention over, they're going to listen to her. So cats must grasp this. Whether what she says is true or not true, they're going to listen to her. And you will be considered guilty until proven innocent. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
My name is Andrea Kelly, born and raised in the Windy City. My family says that I danced before I walked. Dance is the reason why I met Robert. A good friend of mine, Larry, convinced me to go to an audition. I'm like, Larry, I'm not going to an audition. First of all, who the hell is R. Kelly? Because I never heard of him at that point. He's like,
allegedly, you never heard of him at that point. I doubt it, though.
And he's like, no, you should come. It's dope. He's got this new song out called Sex Me. He's going on tour. He's looking for dancers.
Let me say this very quickly for many of you brothers. One of the main things that the modern-day liberal female will try to do, especially when her thrill ride programming is coming to an end, will be to attempt to minimize the impact that you had on her from the initial moments that she became infatuated with you. And I don't care if you're the biggest celebrity in the world or you're bagging groceries at some supermarket somewhere and some chick who's working next to you as a cashier is becoming infatuated with you. That's why you have to understand that you have to walk through life leading with your top head, not your bottom head. So many cats, they fall into despair once they realize that the thrill ride that most modern day females are infatuated with is over. And as we saw with R. Kelly in the interview that he did with Gayle King, he was starting to break down and cry and having flashbacks about all the quote unquote romantic things that he did for her. Now, whether his actions precipitated the end of their relationship or not, he was certainly someone who fell in love with that woman and believed that they were going to last forever no matter what because of his stardom. And at the end of the day, the modern day female is given way too many options for you to believe that anything is going to last forever in the flesh. Always keep that in mind.
This lady says, you got the job. He loved you. And that's how our worlds collide. He was a go-getter. And that was amazing to me. To see somebody who, after sharing that he didn't read or write well, but you could create these amazing songs.
Because conventional reading and writing skills is pretty much just a technicality for someone who's gifted. Like you'll see a lot of pinhead people on the internet talk about how Floyd Mayweather, how he doesn't read well. Well, no matter what he does not do well scholastically, at the end of the day, he's made himself a success in life. R. Kelly is a musical genius. In other words, he's gifted in a certain field of endeavor. So the fact that he might not read or write well should not make him the object of ridicule. In all actuality, if you're a person who holds the ability to read and write so well or in such high esteem, why are you not as successful as those people if you're going to be someone who judges them for not being able to do that well? That's what you have to ask yourself. Muhammad Ali also did not read or write well by his own admission, but he also became a success. Life is not too much about what you can't do. It's more about what you can do and what you're going to do with what you can do.
I was mesmerized. There was a part of me that's like, wow, he is really a musical genius.
Yes, he's Orpheus.
I started to see or more gentle, or I'd rather say vulnerable side. He started to get to the point where he would ask me to teach him how to read.
In other words, he opened up his heart and his spirit to you and made himself, quote unquote, vulnerable. Many females do like that. Let me say this, brothers, always understand that if you're Superman and you decide to tell your Lois Lane that your weakness is kryptonite, do not marvel when after the relationship does not work that she tells everyone else about your weakness, whatever it may be. Always keep in mind that it takes a very long period of time to get to know the woman and grasp whether or not she's someone that you should actually, quote unquote, trust. Trust is like any other form of equity. It gets built up over time, and it gets built up when that asset is put to the test. R. Kelly decided that he was going to divulge to her that he did not read or write well, and beyond that, he wanted her to assist him because he thought that initiating that bridge was going to help their relationship grow. She herself clearly viewed that as a milestone in their relationship because she's talking about it right now as a mechanism through which they got closer. But as we watch over the course of this docuseries, she's also going to turn that flaw of his, that quote unquote flaw, into a form of mocking him. So in other words, just to get back to the point, if you're going to be someone who's going to open up to anyone, you cannot be sensitive, or you cannot marvel when they try to turn what you divulge to them against you.
Being able to share the loss of his mom. With me, it was like 100% wall down to the studs. The nurturer that I am, you're thinking of
the alleged nurturer that you are. You're such a great nurturer that one of your children is going transgender.
Okay, I'm not going to be that person in his life that turns a blind eye. I'm not going to be that person in his life that his story is falling on deaf ears.
And you know what's so funny about that story, brothers? When it first emerged that one of R. Kelly's children wanted to identify as a transgender or someone of the opposite gender, I wondered to myself if it was a ritual, and I still do to this day. Overtly, he came out against the decision that his daughter was making to become a quote-unquote boy or male, while his quote-unquote ex-wife, Andrea Kelly, was fully in support of the daughter's decision. Why is that? Because once again, brothers, the liberal black female is totally in favor of homosexuality, lesbianism, and transgenderism. They have no problem with those phenomena. They have no problem with those ideologies whatsoever, because those are all branches on the tree of Luciferianism. And the average female bends towards Luciferianism. Always grasp that one of the main reasons why not just the so-called black man, but men period, get so frustrated with the woman is because they don't understand the woman. They try to evaluate the woman based on their own parameters. You can't do that. When you understand that the woman, for the most part, is someone who seeks out mischief, then it becomes far easier to understand why they do what they do and why they're about what they're about.
I'm going to be that person in his life that's going to love him through it. And it was actually beautiful in the beginning, but didn't know about the storm on the horizon.
Well, that makes you a damn fool, because anybody who decides to engage in a real relationship and something that's serious or solemn, you have to consider that love and loyalty and steadfastness is not based on how well you conduct yourself in times of prosperity. It's about how well you do in times of adversity. But once again, I mean, I focus more of my attention on you brothers, because you guys have to be the ones who pay attention. R. Kelly should have been the one who paid attention, but unfortunately for him, he was raised in a matriarchal environment. So he has a lot of feminine ways about him. He leads with his emotions, and that's why he's constantly getting caught up in bad situations. In this society, they make sure that they have methodologies for the woman to escape a lot of the repercussions of her bad decisions. When it comes to men, men have to deal with the consequences of their actions. For the most part, the woman knows that she can start to cry and beg for forgiveness from the court or what have you, and they're going to be granted leniency. Men, no. So that's why we have to think on a higher level to avoid dumb shit.
Robert has a lot of rules for people, but he doesn't have many for himself.
Yeah, that's normally how people with a ruling class mentality are, especially if you're living in their abode. Once again, I'm flummoxed by the lack of understanding that so many of these females had who dwelt with him. When it comes to the disassociation phenomena that is so prevalent in all of them, R. Kelly put out the energy that he considered himself a sex god. He put out the energy that he was someone who likes to dominate the people in his sphere. So you thought that you were going to be different. You believed that because he was very communicative with you, with many of his insecurities and his flaws, that you were going to be different, that you were going to operate on an equal plane with him. You were a dancer in his entourage. You were just the main maenad. That's it. That's all you were.
I think he wants to be perceived as the ultimate alpha male when he's really the runt of the litter.
Well, Miss Kelly, please consider the fact that if you're calling R. Kelly the runt of the litter, then what are you saying about yourself? You were with him for 10 years and had 3 of his children. So if he's just the runt of the litter, then you must have been one of the lowest bitches in the litter yourself. No disrespect.
There was a rule being on tour with him. The dancers do not communicate with my background singers. My band don't communicate with my dancers. He really ran it like a dictatorship.
Yes, that's called order. In other words, he don't want everybody fucking everybody else. Because if you have dancers fucking the guys playing the instruments and they're fucking the guys who are handling the schedules, next thing you know, you have dudes beefing with each other over women. You have women fighting with each other over men. And next thing you know, everything is up in smoke. So that's why he handled his business like that. And men who understand order know that you have to keep things separate, not intermingle everything.
Like when we would walk in as dancers, we walked in a single file line.
That's good. That's called order. What you guys were all supposed to walk in a mob?
We did not get to communicate with the other artists in the venue.
Are you there to talk or dance?
We had to stay in our dressing rooms until it was time for you to hit the stage.
So where were you supposed to be? You weren't supposed to be in your dressing room until it was time for you to hit the stage? Were you supposed to be out in front of the arena, hobnobbing and joking around with the people online? I'm confused right now.
My parents were trying to get a hold of me and they couldn't. I did not know that my cell phone number was being changed. And I believe he strategically did it so that he could have all this going on. And if I keep you locked away and keep you isolated, you don't get to see this other side.
So in other words, R. Kelly bought you a phone. He was paying the phone bill. So that means what? He was also checking the phone bill. I mean, it's very simple to me. If you don't like his protocol, then you tell him, I no longer want to work with you or for you because you're not going to separate me from my parents. And then the problem is solved. The real issue that you had was that you loved being a member of his group. And no matter what he did, all it did was provide consternation for you, but never at any point did you reach a tipping point where you said, my family is more important than the money, the acclaim, and the fame that I'm achieving with R. Kelly. So the issue is more you than him.
My wedding was a surprise wedding. I did not know I was getting married.
Well, it wasn't a surprise to Robert.
We went to Colorado, and I remember coming into the hotel room, and there was violinists, there's a cello player. He had the cake, he had the food, he had everything. Like, he went over the top. Like, Robert, what if I wanted to do it in a church? What if I wanted to wear a wedding dress? I don't think he even understands that you've now crossed that line from being generous to being controlling.
Well, you know what the difficulty is there? And brothers, pay very close attention to what she said. She said, I don't think that he understood that he crossed the line from generous to controlling. In other words, she had no problem with the gifts and the chocolates and the flowers and the money and the diamonds and the bracelets and the necklaces, so on and so forth, as long as it was by a mechanism that she approved of. But what Robert was showing her from the start was that he was someone who believed that he would be able to convince her to give herself over to him, mind, body, and soul, through those seductive practices. She was not astute enough or aware enough or concerned enough to consider that people do try to not only buy your love, but to buy your soul. So, of course, he's going to believe that he can organize the wedding and he can leave out whoever he wants to leave out because he's fully in control of your life right now. He wants you and him to live in seclusion. We have to remember that R. Kelly is a Bacchanalian. He adheres to a lot of the Orphic mystery school aspects. As I've stated, he is proverbial Orpheus in the entertainment industry. So he wants to live in seclusion. He has no time to be intermingling with people. He has a certain sense of social ineptness. Part of it's because he's a genius. Most geniuses have an issue being around regular people in society because they feel like they don't fit in. R. Kelly clearly dealt with that issue, and she's supposed to be, for someone who claimed that they had no wall in between them, she's supposed to be aware of that already. So the fact that she was surprised shows that she did not take the time to truly get to know him.
You fall in love with the charmer. You fall in love with his brokenness.
Well, what does that say about you? That you fell in love with the charmer and with his brokenness. You didn't fall in love with his strength, you fell in love with his weakness. So what does that say about you? You needed him to emasculate himself so that you could feel strong, which is something that we see a lot with the modern day liberal female. Brothers, you always have to observe how the woman establishes her paradigm in the relationship with you and her. Is she someone who knows how to support a man and who respects the masculine principle, or is she someone who's always going to go out of her way to try to compel you to tone down the nature of a man, which is to lead, to make the decisions? And that doesn't mean that you have to, with everything, you got to be the one who has the final say. No, if you're a man of wisdom, you should have a woman of wisdom. And you should be able to lean back in your chair and say, she got this, she can handle this. But when it comes time for you to have the final say, then she falls back. There's no going back and forth. There's certainly no arguing in public or in front of the children. And if she does have a contention, she knows how to handle it in private. These are all things that we have to be fully aware of before we decide to indulge in any type of quote unquote serious relationship.
And then slowly, he lets the other one creep in.
I'm pretty sure that he would probably say the same thing about you.
He's a control freak.
Well, here, he told you he's a freak. He might left out the control part, but he told you he's a freak.
Having to call him daddy. There should not be repercussions if I don't call you daddy.
Well, once you agree that you're going to call him daddy, once you decide to not call him daddy, he has the right to get mad. If you don't want to call him daddy, then you tell him that from the very start. Because it's like even when you're a kid, if your mother or your father call you by a nickname or a pet name, you know that everything is good. But if they call you by your real name, now you know that your ass might be in trouble. If Robert tells you to call him daddy and you agree to that, now all of a sudden you calling him Robert, he's going to associate that with some type of separation in the relationship. And someone like him who's accustomed to being betrayed by family members, that can have consequences.
I can control what you do, who you do it with, how long you do it, where you're going, what you wear, when you eat, when you sleep. I honestly believe that he has a God complex.
He might have a God complex. But my question is, did you have a goddess complex? You didn't notice when he was doing all these controlling maneuvers with everybody else that he might do it with you as well? Maybe you believe that he would not do it to you because you thought that you were his equal. So therefore, if you assess that he has a God complex, that must mean that you thought that you were a goddess, and you are not.
Did he lock you up? Because we've heard stories where you were locked up. Is that true?
There's certain things that Robert has done to me that I'm not willing to talk about today because...
Like what? You done talked about everything else? I mean, shit, if you're going to talk about him hog-tying you, what you not going to talk about? I mean, what did he do that you're not willing to talk about if you want to talk about him hog-tying your ass? And if he locked you up, what did he lock you up for? Were you acting like a criminal?
The pain, the disbelief still, and the darkness of it.
Was it really that dark? What was dark? What he did to you? Or that dungeon that he locked your ass up in? That's a damn shame. Okay, so now she's going to start to go into detail about some of the things that she used to do that would annoy R. Kelly.
Little things like if you would do something wrong instead of saying, hey, do it this way. Are you that stupid?
Well, how many times do I have to tell you? Maybe the first time he said, do it this way. And by the 45th time, he got mad, man. You know, like he says, you know, when a man's fed up, there's nothing you could do about it.
It would be the smallest things that you think would not make the average person feel inadequate, but you hear it enough and you start thinking, okay, so I'm not smart enough, I don't make your pancakes right, the milk was too cold, then one time I make the milk too cold, it shouldn't have been this, so you're just always on eggshells.
Okay, so then get the milk right then. I mean, shit. Who the hell wants some cold ass milk with his breakfast? Maybe the man wants some hot chocolate. Speak to the man. Maybe if you wasn't so busy worrying about how he can't read, you know how the man like his pancakes and his milk.
You don't even believe in your own sense of judgment after a while. And you're trying to figure out, how do I get him back to the good space? Okay, I'll take responsibility for it. I'll just say it's my fault. I'll say yes to whatever it is. I'll apologize. Because if I can just get him back to the good guy, the one that I fell in love with, then I'm in a good space.
So you mean to tell me that man jumped out of a helicopter to propose to you, had singers and lions and tigers and bears and elephants at your damn wedding, and you still trying to act like you want to get him back to the good space after he did all that for your wedding and put you up in a mansion? If all the man was complaining about was his pancakes and his milk and you couldn't get that shit right, I mean, damn, and I'm sure that y'all had a chef. So one time out the year he asked you to make him some damn pancakes and you couldn't get them shits right, and you talking about getting back to the good space. How about this? Buy you a good cookbook and get back into that space. I promise you that, you know, he won't be as upset as he was before. You know, at least give him some food in his belly so that he can go off and plow out his other concubines.
How do I stop it? How do I get you back? How do I get you back to the guy that asked me to help him read?
Maybe he can read now. Maybe he don't need you no more. What you want me to say? You want him to go back to the guy who was illiterate? What kind of dumb shit is this? So now we've moved ahead in the R. Kelly docuseries, and his former wife, Andrea Kelly, is forced to come to terms with the fact that R. Kelly is sleeping with many, many, many other women than her.
The girls that were seeing the other side of him, did you notice them? Do you know how, were they young at that time?
No, he never brought any of them around me. He was never abusive to anybody in front of me. He was never a person that, you know.
So that's interesting. R. Kelly never brought any other females around you. He was never abusive to anyone in front of you. And yet your contention is that he used to beat the shit out of you and hog tie you.
You know, like, hey, do y'all hear that in the room next door? Is that fighting or something? I mean, we have to be realistic about the storyline too. Seeing some like that, we really are not going to be together because you're showing me up front who your monster is.
Well, wait a minute. Why would that be a determining factor when, according to you, he was whooping your ass? So he would have had to bring some of his concubines in front of you, beat them down for you to understand who he, quote unquote, really was, even though, according to you, he was mistreating you. Okay.
So I think that he strategically did what he did with me.
Well, anyone who has a brain does think strategically.
He kept it away from me for a reason. It's like sometimes I often wish I would have just known up front. I really do. I wish that I would have been able to see the fullness of the monster I was dealing with.
He would probably say the same thing about you. Unfortunately, he's not filming a documentary on his ex-wives. Brothers, how do you think the mainstream media and the public at large would respond to a docuseries about Jennifer Lopez called Surviving J-Lo, featuring Ben Affleck and P. Diddy and Casper Smart and whoever, all the other guys that she's been with, Mark Anthony, and they all sat down and talked about how terrible Jennifer Lopez was as a wife and as a girlfriend, so on and so forth? Do you think people would take those men seriously? Of course they wouldn't. Because men are held to higher expectations than women, and I have no problem with that whatsoever. Just don't come back and tell me that the woman is equal to the man when we all know that they're not. We all know that women are held to far lower expectations when it comes to conduct and expression than men are. Men are expected to compartmentalize all the issues that they've had to deal with, all the pain that they've endured, and move forward. The woman is now allowed to attention monger and attention seek to the detriment of everyone around her, to the detriment of society at large. Why is that? Because the woman is an agent of chaos by nature and does not particularly care who she affects with her words, as long as she gets to express herself and benefit in the long run. That's pretty much how they are, and that's how they operate. Do you have responsible women who actually are able to consider other people? Absolutely. But the woman in general is someone who's going to try to put out as much energy as they can, hoping to get attention back, and they don't particularly care about the collateral damage. And that is why understanding the nature of the woman is so integral.
Because it probably would have saved me years and years of pain. It would have saved me years of abuse. It would have saved me years of being alienated from my family if I just would have known up front what the hell I'm dealing with.
That's interesting. I wonder how much money R. Kelly sent your family's way. Supposedly you claim that if you had known about him before time, you would not have allowed him to separate you from your family. I wonder how much money he sent your family's way over the course of your 10-year marriage.
What was he like as a father? Was he loving with your children?
I think Robert loved our children the best way he knew how. He didn't have a father figure in his life, so he really didn't know how to be a father.
Once again, brothers, protect your seed. Okay? We have to understand the importance of presiding over our children if you happen to have a child or children. Because if you don't, you're going to be the one who will be the recipient of all the castigation, whether it's on TV, whether it's in public, whether it's in the court system or the courtroom or what have you. You're going to be that person. Please understand that the modern liberal female tells everyone within earshot that she does not need a man, and then goes about trying to scrutinize men for not being involved in the lives of their family. So the woman speaks out of both sides of her mouth and is totally unaware of it. Why is that? Because she's not a three-dimensional thinker. She's not someone who understands what her role is in the grand scheme of things, nor cares to. She wants to be the star. She's like an offensive lineman on a football team who really wants to be the quarterback. So we have to think on a higher level so that we can avoid these different dynamics, because at the end of the day, if you don't comprehend what type of woman you're procreating with, and they turn against you and take the children away and then try to inform you of how and at what time you're going to be allowed to act as a shepherd over your own children, to marginalize you per se. And then as the children get older and she cannot handle them anymore, now she wants you to clean up the mess that she's partially responsible for. Of course, you're not going to be able to do that to the degree that you would have if you would have presided over your children from their youth upward. That's why, once again, we have to focus on the type of women that we're procreating with.
He just knew how to provide.
Once again, for anyone who develops or establishes a relationship with someone who's a quote-unquote genius, especially if a woman were to do that with a man, she has to accept the fact that he's going to be quote-unquote quirky or quote-unquote eccentric. He's not going to be conventional. If you think that R. Kelly, who's a creative mastermind, is going to be spending 3 and 4 hours with the kids every day after school, you better think again. If you thought that Michael Jordan was going to be spending 3 and 4 hours every day after school with his children, it's not going to happen. For the most part, most people who are geniuses in their field, yes, they have children and they love to the best of their ability, but their true love is always going to be what they're gifted in. So she should have understood that or comprehended that or considered that before she married him.
I would always hear rumors about, oh, he's being sued by this person and sued by that person. And it almost seemed like every other week he was in the tabloids for something. Another person's coming for it. And I'm thinking to myself,
well, number one, that should have been a red flag that he was doing his thing. And I'm sure that you were good with him doing his thing as long as he was providing for you. But number two, at the end of the day, you have to understand that when you're associated with a celebrity, celebrities have lawyers to deal with people who make all types of accusations about them, against them, who sue them I promise you, to this day, Jay-Z, Drake, Floyd Mayweather, they're the recipients of probably 20 to 30 lawsuits per year.
Stuff like, when did you have time? Are there more? Like, do you have a doppelganger around here that I don't know about? Like, when do you have time to go to the studio, play basketball, come abuse me, be a dad when you wanted to, and then go destroy other people's lives?
R. Kelly probably answered her. He probably said, I'm a flirt. When you see me walking out the house, I'm a flirt.
Lives and still be on the road and shoot videos. Like, it was just, my mind couldn't fathom, like, how are you doing all this?
I'm a flirt.
And why didn't I know anything about it? And I think the frustration set in because it then became very real to me. Drea, the reason why you don't know and he's able to do it because he has people helping him.
Good job. You finally came to that conclusion, what? Probably 10, 12 years down the line? I think that even though R. Kelly might have issues reading books, you have issues reading the signs.
You have your team. You have your cover-up people. You have lawyers settling claims out of court. Not trying to be funny. You don't read and write well. So you're not booking flights.
Right, but he's R. Kelly. Why the fuck you gonna be booking his own flights? He's a celebrity. You got people doing that for you.
Who's booking these flights? Who's telling the driver to go pick people up?
Well, obviously it wasn't you. You was at home struggling to make pancakes.
Who's getting these hotel rooms? He's not doing it on his own.
Nor should he be. Nobody does that shit on their own when they're at that level. How well you read or don't read has nothing to do with it.
He put me on the bus in the middle of the night, did not tell me why we're going, what we're going for. He shipped me off to Florida and I'm just staying in this house. I don't know what's going on. I got security at the door. Nobody.
He got you in a safe house. You're like a mafia wife.
The door, nobody's telling me anything. Like, why are we here? Why did we leave Illinois? I'm pregnant. I'm supposed to be going to the doctor at least once a week at this point. I should not be traveling. What is going on? No one would tell me anything. I was just broken.
You was broken or you was broke? I think you were broke. Because if you wasn't broke, you probably would have been left.
I'm supposed to be going to the doctor at least once a week at this point. I should not be traveling. What is going on? No one would tell me anything. I was under so much stress that when I went to the OBGYN, they couldn't find his heartbeat.
He was trying to match his mama. Because you kind of heartless your damn self.
And I remember getting to the emergency room and my best friend Angie was with me, and I just remember coming through the door and they had papers and signing and people were grabbing me and putting stuff in my arm, and I'm like, wait, like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, we have to induce your labor right away because we don't know if the baby's gonna make it. I just remember them laying me on the bed. And they was like, we're gonna give you Pitocin, we're gonna get this going, come on, Mom. And I went through the labor and I just remember falling so in love with little Rob because he came here so strong. But I was in that much stress that it put my unborn child's life in jeopardy.
Let me say this very quickly, brothers. Even though I joke around every once in a while over the course of this docu-series, it's very obvious that R. Kelly was dealing with a certain disassociation or detachment from reality. And I mean, when you know that you're going to be bringing another life into the world, you do have to grasp that the person that is assisting you in bringing that life into the world, they have to know where you at, man. They got to know where you at. They have to be able to reach out to you. At that moment, he was in a very terrible situation where he may have felt like they were mitigating circumstances that would have stopped him from being as communicative as possible. Or maybe he just didn't give a shit. Who knows? Either way, we have to protect our seeds, man.
Because here I am by myself in Florida. I don't know anybody. I just have my best friend. And they eventually, again, had to go through 10 people to get him on the phone. Mr. Kelly, do you know that they induced your wife's labor? Like, she just had little Rob. He said he was coming back.
R. Kelly was on the other line like, we went half on a baby.
But again, I don't know where he is. And I remember after having him, that's when that day happened.
Mr. Kelly has been indicted. There's been a warrant issued for his arrest, and the Chicago Police Department is currently seeking to arrest Mr. Kelly.
That's crazy, man. R. Kelly's something else.
I'm sitting here with the baby, and then it comes across the screen. They're like, R&B singer R. Kelly has been arrested on child pornography, and I just remember my best friend was with me. And she said she don't know what happened, but my body went limp, and she said she caught little Rob before he hit the floor. I remember like a buzzing sound. It almost felt like I couldn't hear. And I saw the screen, and they showed his name and the police, and I don't even remember a lot after that.
So let me get this straight. You were just so flabbergasted and shocked at the allegations that were being levied against your quote-unquote husband, R. Kelly, even though it was common knowledge that R. Kelly was attracted to younger females, even marrying Aaliyah a couple of years before he married you. But you were shocked by that. And on top of that, you're from Chicago, so I'm sure that many people from Chicago know that R. Kelly is not just someone who sleeps with a young female every once in a while. That is an attraction that he very clearly has. And yet, you're shocked.
He denied it for the longest time. Like, Andrea, it's not what you think. They're lying on me. Somebody set me up. I finally realized it doesn't get better. It gets worse.
I agree with that. Hey, brother, I tell you guys that all the time. In a relationship with a liberal female or someone who's carrying a lot of baggage, things don't get better. They get worse. If someone shows you that they're one-timely going to be disrespectful or expect you to carry their baggage from 5 boyfriends ago, it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. When you're dealing with a concubine, she's going to find a way to turn a positive into a negative. It's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. Please keep that in mind.
I had small children. They were already dealing with their father in the news having a court case that deals with pedophilia and children. And I remember going out on the balcony and climbing up on the ledge. Like, God, I can't take another day. I can't do this anymore. He had taken me to a place that I was willing to leave my babies.
I'm not sure if she's looking for sympathy there. To me, all I hear is a neglectful parent.
So I just prayed and asked God for a sign. And something said to get my laptop.
Or she's full of shit and she's lying.
And I went to the National Domestic Violence Awareness Hotline. And there's 17 questions. There was only 2 things on that list that Robert hadn't done to me.
And those 2 things are what? Get you a fashion stylist and a makeup artist? Because those are the 2 things that he should have done for your ass.
And that's when it became real to me. Like, you're being abused.
Wow. So you called up an abuse hotline and you looked at a check off of 20 options, and there were only 2 things that he had not done to you. And it was not until that moment that you realized that you were being abused. I think that for most people, it's easy for them to figure out when they're being abused, if they're actually getting abused.
The day that I left Robert, I was like any other woman, running.
You like any other woman? What, lying to yourself?
Running in the middle of the night, $2,500, a duffel bag, my 3 babies, and nothing else. He has all the money. Where are you going?
To court, where all the other broke ass women go. Take your ass to court and go about things the right way. Talking about you was on the run with your 3 babies and $2,500. Knock it off.
With 3 babies, no money.
You just say you had $2,500. Did you have no money or $2,500? Or is $2,500 no money to you because you're so busy spending his money?
But I would rather die.
No, you wouldn't, because if you'd rather die, you would have jumped off that damn balcony.
knowing that I tried to get away from him than to die right there in the house because I didn't have the courage to leave.
Well, what was he going to do? He's going to sing you to death? Let's knock it off. What you say you you say you're not going to be his wife anymore? He said, "Don't you say no tonight." Give me a break already with this bullshit. So now Andrea Kelly is going to start to expound on the alleged abuse that she suffered at the hands of R. Kelly, allegedly.
The abuse had gotten so bad with Robert to the point I left with nothing.
About the same amount you came in with, nothing. You left with nothing, you came in with nothing.
If you look at my order of protection and my restraining order, it was actually the judge that crossed it out and wrote in, he is to have no contact with the children.
Well, that's what the court system will do for you. They'll make sure that they cut the father completely out of the life of his children. So that's why I'm saying you're trying to act like you have no options. Everyone knows that when the woman runs to court, the court basically is at the service of the woman because she's viewed as being the caretaker of the bond, that being the child, or any child who has a birth certificate. They're basically an asset to the system. The job of the woman is to maintain the bond and watch it mature.
After the divorce, people are quick to pass judgment and they have no idea that behind the scenes, you think I'm living this great life. I'm in foreclosure court on my house. Why?
Because you're broke.
Why? Robert stopped paying child support as a way to punish me.
Well, is it child support or house support? You can't afford to pay your own mortgage?
So people think that I'm living this great lavish life, but they don't understand.
You better take your ass back to his house and make them pancakes.
I have 3 small children that I had to think about.
They ain't that damn small. They might have been small at the time, but they ain't that damn small now.
Think about before I could come forward. That's a lot for my children to deal with. I had to make sure my children were okay before I could come forward.
Allegedly.
I had to make sure emotionally they were where they could handle it.
You had to make sure that you had the right lawyer before you came forward. That's really what the issue's about. But anyway, brothers, that's basically it on episode 2 of the series Chronicles of Judah. Puts the R. Kelly accusers on trial. That was Miss Andrea Kelly, or the former Mrs. Andrea Kelly, on trial. Some of the statements that she made were understandable. Most of them were not really understandable unless you grasp what the true motivating force is for most modern day females and most women in general, and that's okay. I'm not going to demonize her or make her out to be a bad person. R. Kelly clearly was not mature enough to ever be married. He clearly has a lot of issues that he has to deal with. And I believe that she has a lot of issues of her own. But he's not going to be the one who's capable of helping her with her issues when he has so many problems that he had. But that's neither here nor there. They're separated anyway. So peace.